President, needless to say, I see in my election a special appreciation for Egypt and a recognition of the role she plays on the international scene.
Boutros Ghali was born in Cairo on the 14th of November 1922 into a bourgeois Coptic Christian family. He was named after his grandfather, Boutros Ghali, who was Egypt's prime minister from 1908 to 1910. Boutros Ghali graduated from Cairo University in 1946 and received a PhD in international law from the University of Paris in 1949. Dr. Boutros Ghali was appointed Professor of International Law and International Relations at Cairo University between 1949 and 1977. He was a member of the Central Committee and Political Bureau of the Arab Socialist Union from 1974 to 1977. Dr. Boutros Ghali served as Egypt's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs between 1977 and early 1991. He then became Egypt's Deputy Prime Minister for Foreign Affairs for several months, before moving to the United Nations. He was Vice President of the Socialist International until assuming office as UN Secretary General in 1992. Dr. Boutros Ghali played a part in the peace agreements between Egyptian President Mohammed Anwar al-Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin.
Our main preoccupation was to avoid a bilateral agreement between Israel and Egypt at the expense of the Palestinians.
In September 1978, Dr. Boutros Ghali attended the Camp David summit and had a role in negotiating the Camp David Accords between Egypt and Israel, which was signed in 1979. Dr. Boutros Ghali became the 6th Secretary General of the United Nations from January 1992 to December 1996. He oversaw the United Nations at a time when it dealt with several world crises, including the breakup of Yugoslavia, the Rwandan genocide, and the Srebrenica and Kana massacres. Dr. Boutros Ghali became Secretary General of La Francophonie between 1997 and 2002. He founded the National Council for Human Rights, the NCHR, in Egypt in 2003 and became its first president. He remained as NCHR president until September 2012, when the council members were reshuffled. The newly formed council became Brotherhood-dominated during the rule of then Brotherhood President Mohamed Morsi, and remained as such until Morsi's ouster in July 2013. Dr. Boutros Ghali became honorary president of the National Council for Human Rights when new NCHR members were appointed in August 2013 during the rule of interim president Adli Mansour. Dr. Boutros Ghali participated in numerous meetings, conferences and summits. He chaired an international panel on democracy and development set up by UNESCO and composed of 16 personalities from all regions of the world. The debates took place during 3 meetings starting 1998. Dr. Boutros Ghali is a prolific writer, and one of his favorite topics is globalization. Joining Peace in Focus is His Excellency Dr. Boutros Ghali, Honorary President of the National Council for Human Rights and former UN Secretary General. Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining Peace in Focus. Good to have you, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Boutros, you've assumed many key positions.
I believe the most important position, which is a very personal choice, is when I was Minister of State and I was with President Sadat I went with him to Jerusalem.
Minister of State for Foreign Affairs.
Yes.
Well, late President Anwar Sadat, he used to call you Peter when he was happy with your performance. Do you remember those days?
Yes, I remember, and this is the way Menachem begin his conversation with me. Every time she say, "This morning President Sadat called you Boutros or Peter?" I say, I don't know, still you have not talked to me, but ask him.
Late President Anwar Sadat used to call you Peter when he was happy with your performance as Minister of State for Foreign Affairs. But Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin used to call you Peter when he thought you created obstacles for him during the Camp David peace negotiations.
He called me Peter when he was in good term with me, and he called me again by my real name, Boutros, when he was not, let us say, satisfied by what I've done. But Begin changed this. But for him, he was a way to open the conversation with me.
Dr. Boutros, you've written extensively about the relationship between democracy, development, and peace. What is the nature of the links between democracy and development, and which links should be reinforced in post-revolution Egypt?
Do you know, after I left the United Nations, the president or the secretary general of the UNESCO asked me to preside a commission, an international commission of a group of scholars coming from different parts of the world, and the subject of this was the relation between democracy and development, or the reactions between democracy and development.
Interaction.
Yes, interaction. And the result after different meetings was that it depends. It changed according to the situation of each state. It changed even at the same state at different periods. So it is, practically it is not easy to say what is more important. Certainly there is a relation between democracy and development. Development needs a democratic atmosphere. Not necessary. In certain countries they can do the development without this democratic attitude. And in other case, democracy is more important than development. So there is no rule. What we are, what we discuss about is, it depends of what is the situation in each country.
Yeah.
Because democracy have different significations, and development can take different form. So again, it is a theoretical discussion, which is to encourage states, member states, to take in consideration that there is a relation between democracy and development. and that we need democracy for development as we need development for democracy. But the priority must be given to democracy or to development. This depends on the country, on the signification of democracy, which is different in different parts of the world.
Your writings also focus on globalizations in the plural form. What are the different kinds of globalization, and to what extent are we experiencing unbridled globalization?
Terrorism is no more a purely national event. You have globalization in the problem of climate. You have globalization in the term of disease. You have globalization in the term of communication. The fact that you can have news in few seconds of what happened in New York, or New York can know what happened in Egypt. This is already a drastic change.
Yeah.
It means the technology have played a very important role. And what is important is to prepare ourselves that the main national problems will not be solved at the national level, but we need an international solution. So this demands more attention to foreign affairs, more attention to different international organizations. Because not now, but in the next years, the majority of the problem, just take the problem of finance in our country, we need a global approach. Take the problem of terrorism, unless we have a cooperation with different other countries fighting terrorism, it will be very difficult. Terrorism is becoming international.
You believe that globalization has created the problem of identitarian closure that is clearly expressed in mounting ethnic, national and religious extremism and fundamentalism. What are the details and who are the winners and losers?
It means any country which is not able to understand the importance of globalization.
Yeah.
Any country who is not ready to open the windows and the doors. I will tell you a story about this. I have a very old servant who come to see me and say, you mentioned at the television the other day that we must open the doors and the windows. We must open, we must not close everything. And at home you tell us, please close the doors and the window because of the hot atmosphere or the cold atmosphere. I say, my dear, there is a difference between the doors and the windows of my apartment and the doors and the window of a state. So it is important to be able, and again it is a question of mentality. You see, what is one of the secrets of the power of the United States? That they will adopt immediately any personality which can help the progress of the United States.
Yes.
Mr. Kissinger, Mrs. Madeleine Albright, all of them are foreigners since few months, and they were admitted as member of the American establishment. Here we are not able. Until now we say Suleiman Pasha al-Fransawi, the French Suleiman Pasha. He is an Egyptian now. Why are you not proud to say he is Egyptian? You say Nubar Pasha al-Armani. Why don't you say that he is an Egyptian? So again, the mentality is a closed mentality. We are not ready to open the doors and the window of this country. We are afraid of the foreigner. We are afraid of foreign culture.
When you say we, you mean Egypt or the world? Because I mean, you can see this.
I'm talking about Egypt.
But don't you see this also in European countries?
Certain European country, yes. Certain element in European country, yes. But you have on the other side, countries who are open, who want to admit foreigners, who need foreigners.
So you do think that fundamentalism is a violent reaction to unbridled globalization?
Yes, certainly. I don't say it is the only sources, but certainly it is one of the reasons of fundamentalism is what they call the French repli culturel. They return back to their old tradition.
To the village.
They return back to the village. Do you know, in certain village, if the girl gets married to a boy from another village, she will be killed. This happens in India, in certain villages. So again, you can have this negative attitude toward everything which is different. We are not ready to accept the difference. Just take another example. When I was president of the Commission of Human Rights, you have in your card 3 religions. Jew.
You mean the identification card?
Yes, identification card. Jew, Muslim, or Christian. But I say those 3 religions represent only 1/3 of the religion of the world.
Yes.
The 2/3 are religion belonging to Jewish and Christian and Muslim. Say they are not religion. You say it so. For them it is a religion. Okay, but if you read the Constitution, they say Deen and Aqidah.
Creed.
Yes. So you must open your door. You must accept that he will put on his card Buddhist or Shintoist. They represent the majority of the religion all over the world. You don't recognize them. This is an example of how we have still a closed mentality.
But to my understanding, yeah, we still have this problem in Egypt, but in the Constitution, the 2014 Constitution, they put an article, Article 80, it's about children's rights, that every born child should have identification papers, which means that the Baha'is, for instance, and other people who believe in religions apart from Islam and Christianity and Judaism, they can now have identification papers at least.
Practically, I have failed to obtain that they can put their name. And still the Egyptian civil servants will say, what do you mean by this religion?
Yeah.
They don't understand. Again, they don't know that there is a religion which is older than the 3 religions, Buddhism, that there is different religion, Shintoism. And this needs a kind of new attitude towards what is different.
Yeah, yes.
We are still not able to accept the difference.
In your memoirs that cover the period between 1981 and 1992, you repeatedly warned of Islamist fundamentalism, political Islam, and specifically the Muslim Brotherhood. What were your concerns?
Again, my main concern is the fact that the basic philosophy is fundamentalism, is to close the door and the window of the country and refuse to have any contact with the foreigner. This is the real problem. Or, in a world of globalization, we must open. We must have an open society. We must accept, I say, are you ready to have a foreign minister who is from, let us say, Greek origin? Huh? This is the case. It will take time in this country, unfortunately. It will not be easy. And this is one of the main obstacles, our incapacity to cooperate, to have a real cooperation with the foreigner. I always give this example. What is the most important element or the important game in Egypt? Football. You bring a foreigner to help to train the football. Why don't you do the same in the field of finance, in the field of education, in different fields? You have not the experts. Bring foreign experts. Don't be afraid. Foreign experts.
To what extent is it true that you were number 2 on the list of those who should be assassinated by Islamist fundamentalists on October 6, 1981? President Sadat was number 1 on the list, but you were lucky. You were in Alexandria and Muntaza enjoying the sun and sea with your friends, and you did not attend the October 6th annual Victory Parade.
At least this is what General Kamal Hassan Ali told me. No, I don't know if it is the reality. Do you see, happily for me, the security administration or the police agree not to mention, because it will complicate my life. Already my life is complicated for security problems. So to avoid, to create an atmosphere, at least at home, I prefer to avoid to mention those problems.
What do you think of Mohamed Morsi's rule of Egypt between June 2012 and July 2013?
No, to Mohamed Morsi, we return back 400 years. But it was 1 year we will cost to Egypt at least 10 years to reconstruct what have been demolished in 1 year.
What do you think of Egypt's decision in 2013 to declare the Brotherhood a terrorist organization?
I believe it is very important, it means. You cannot cooperate. You see, you have the same problem in Peru with Sentier Lumineux. You have the same problem in Mozambique, in Angola, in Cambodia. So there is only one way, is to put an end to this confrontation.
How can globalization be democratized and harnessed so as to achieve democracy and sustainable democratic development in Egypt and worldwide? What are the impediments?
I believe that the democratization of globalization will be by obtaining the participation of the non-state actors in the international legislation. Let us take an example. At the United Nations, the international organization was created on the basis of one actor, the state.
Yeah.
Today you have not only the state, but you have the non-actor state. You have an international organization which is more powerful. You can have a private international organization which is more powerful than the majority of the member states. You can have an association of parliamentarians. You can have regional organization. So all those non-state actors must participate in the future United Nations. And this is the way to obtain the democratization of the United Nations, or the democratization of globalization. I mean by democratization of globalization that the decision will not be taken by one state.
Yeah, like the United States.
No, by different states.
Yeah.
I remember in a speech I gave the 31 of January 1992 at the General Assembly. It was the first meeting of the head of state and head of government at the level of the Security Council. So I give a speech as the new Secretary General.
Yes.
And say what is important is not democracy within member states, but democracy among member states.
Yes.
And then the only one who noticed this was Bush father. And he came and said, what do you mean by democracy among states? I said, Mr. President, the decision will not be taken by one state, but will be taken by, after a discussion of many states. So I don't believe that democracy among states can have the same rule like democracy within states. It was the power, the superpower, and I was just the beginner, beginning a new job. So I mentioned nothing. But the only one who noticed this was Bush's father. All the other, the 15 members, 15 head of state or head of government, have not noticed the fact that I mentioned democracy within member states, but democracy among member states.
How would you explain the reluctance of democracies to extend their model of governance to interstate relations?
No, again, this is something new. It will mean that you will have to obtain the participation not only of the states in foreign affairs, but also the participation of the non-state actors. In other way, let us say...
You mean something like the European Parliament?
No, I'm saying yes, like the European Parliament, like a non-governmental organization. You have thousands of non-governmental organizations. Some of them are more powerful than the majority of the member states of the United Nations. So I believe that those new actors must participate. It is something new, because the whole system was based on the sovereign state. There is no more sovereignty, full sovereignty. And this is very difficult to accept, to be accepted by the member states. Now, the decision cannot be solved, the problem cannot be solved, the majority of the problem, of the national problem, cannot be solved at the national level.
Don't you think it's unfair and inaccurate to lay all the blame on globalization for creating impediments to development and democracy? Don't you think that non-democratic and corrupt leaders and governments in the Arab world and elsewhere share part of the blame?
Yes, I agree. You have particular readers. Yes, certainly. And as I mentioned, we need national democracy to be able to participate in the international democracy. But what I want to say, that the main problem of a state tomorrow will be solved at the international level.
Don't you think that it was social media, a global leap in the history of mankind, that helped create a sense of international, regional, and local solidarity that mobilized people in the Arab world to revolt against dictatorship and demand democracy and a better quality of life? So globalization does have advantages.
Oh no, the globalization can have negative approach. What is important is to participate in the globalization, so we will be able to contain the negative element of globalization and sustain the positive element. It means our participation will help to the democratization. If we will not participate in the democratization of globalization, the result will be that solution will be imposed on Egypt by the Monetary Fund, by the international organizations.
Your Excellency, Dr. Boutros Boutros-Ghali, Honorary President of the National Council for Human Rights and former UN Secretary General, thank you so much for joining Peace in Focus. It has been interesting talking to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.